So here we are in the Audio Animals Dolby Atmos mixing and mastering studio. We have the McDSP APB-8. We're looking at putting in 4 APB-16s for the purpose of digital recall whilst working in Dolby Atmos with analog processing. Which quite honestly is going to be brilliant, and it perfectly fits the Dolby Atmos workflow. Okay, so first of all, what we'll do is we'll check out, let's go to, and we'll check out the C18 compressor. Okay, first initial thoughts on that is, I mean, it sounds great. I'd love to compare to a digital compressor. So let's just quickly, for the argument of how does this compressor with analog circuitry work in comparison to something like the tried and trusted FabFilter Pro C2. I'll put this on and I'll just play around with similar kind of vibe, and I mean, we can get a direct comparison between what that compressor sounds like technically analog, which it is, compared to an all digital compressor. So let's just program some Pro C2 compression in. Okay, that's just a simple little bit of compression there using the Pro C2. So what we'll do now is we'll just flip between the McDSP and the Pro C2. I mean, I think we can all agree the McDSP is leaps and bounds better than the Pro C2. That's not to say the Pro C2 is bad in any way. It's a brilliant digital compressor. It is perfectly fine. But the McDSP is next level. So next we're going to see what the C673A sounds like. I mean, I love how this sounds. I mean, the simple functionality of it is so simple. And the sound, I mean, this thing is different class. It really is. Let's go to another compressor, the chicken head. Now, this is one when I told a few people that I had one of these in, the first thing they said to me was, let me know how good the chicken head is. So here we are with the chicken head. What we'll do is we'll have a play with this and see what this sounds like. Now, one thing I'll say after checking out 3 compressors over a snare, every single one of them is far superior to anything in the digital world. These, honestly, they sound like, you know, they sound like analog compressors because they are, but you have 100% of the digital control. These are fantastic. They really are. Right. Let's now go to the Moo limiter. Moo limiter. I mean, I get it. Moo being, looks like a cow, black and white, little spots. Cool. Right, limiter over the snare. We got saturation as well on this, which is cool. So we've got some saturation. That's going to be analog saturation. So it's one thing that no digital saturation can do is emulate the sheer quality of analog saturation. In our mastering room next door, we've got a VSM2 and a Whitestone P331. The VSM2 has a VSM3 digital unit. You cannot compare the two in terms of how they sound. They're different class. So like saturation on this, I'm very keen to use saturation with digital recall, but with analog saturation. It should be really good. Let's have a look. Yeah, that is beautiful. That saturation's really nice. You can really tell when that's on and off. That is really cool. That alone, that is very good. I like that. Right, let's go to the next one. So we're going to pick the Moo Tube Comp next. Follow on from the previous Moo compressor. Let's have a look at what this sounds like. I wouldn't say it's got as much character as the previous one because you've got the saturation in with the previous one. But this one's a really nice, clean compressor. Really good. Sounds great. I'll tell you what we do is let's do a quick comparison. Jump back to that the Fab Filter Pro C, and let's see how these two compare. Yeah, slightly different compression types, but ultimately the this Moo tube Analogue sounds a lot more punchier. I would much prefer this compressor in my drum mix over the Fab Filter 100 times. Next up, we've got the Royal Moo. Well, I mean, we've got a lot of control. It looks quite daunting just looking at it straight away. But let's so you got dual mono, stereo. You got mid side as well, which is nice. You got link, always handy. Saturation. So we've got, I'm guessing, saturation. Oh, bias, right? Yep. Saturation being probably this side. Oh no, saturation probably no. That's your gain, that's your peak. Threshold ratio, release, attack. I would imagine that's the bias. And saturation, let's just have a play, see where we go with this. We're going to put it in link rather than mid-side. Let's have a play. It's a slightly different compressor to the others. Of all of them, it's my least favourite for some reason. I don't feel it's got as much character as the others. The others sound really good. This one, I probably need to look at it in a little bit more detail, play around with it a bit more. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds great. It's just not, of all of them, my favoured compressor. Although saying that, this one has got mid-side, so there'll be times when I'll use this over the others just for the factor of I have mid-side, or I need to process the right and I need to process the left. So there is that that benefit, I guess, on this one. Right, next we have the MC3, which is a multicom. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning with regards to this is we literally have 3 bands. 3 bands means 3 compressors. An APB-8 has 8 channels. This plugin itself will take up 3 channels of your APB-8, leaving you with 5. So bear in mind that one plugin doesn't equal one channel or one usage of your McDSP. This one is going to take up 3. So obviously, if you're only using one channel on the multi, use something else, because this is going to take up your processing on there. But let's see what this is like. This is going to be an interesting one, because we're going to be able to kind of let the tops breathe on the snare, compress the bottom, make that pop, and then let the tops breathe. So let's see what this one sounds like. I mean, I had a quick play with that, and that is going to be really, really helpful, because it's not just compression. It's almost like, it's basically like an EQ. Because you've got 3-band EQ as well in there, where you're able to brighten, compress. There's a lot you can do in that. That can get very very creative. That one's going to be really good for me. I'm really looking forward to that. And you've got the saturation in there as well. Yeah, this is a good little tool. This so you can basically use these two to sweep where your crossovers are. Then you've got attack, release, saturation, ratio, threshold. You can solo each band as well. I mean, they've really thought this out. You can listen to each band. Yeah, no, this is good. I like this one. Right, let's now take a look at the McDSP, what is this? The L18 limiter. Now, I believe this limiter is also in, they have a version which is for Atmos, which is 7.12 maybe, I think. Bearing in mind, 7.12 not only takes up a couple of channels of when you're working in stereo, you're using up 2 of your 8 processing channels in your McDSP. The limiter is technically going to take up 7.12, which is 10 channels. So it's heavy on the usage. You are going to need, if you're going to use the 10 channel Dolby Atmos version, you are going to need the 16 version, or 2 of those. So we are going to use this in stereo, because we're just going to process this though over that stereo snare bus. So let's see what this sounds like. Okay, this is good. This is really good. Now, the reason I'm saying this is good is he's a great sounding limiter. This is a really good sounding limiter. The color on it is really cool. I love that. I don't know if that is just, I don't know what that is. I'll have to read the manual in regards to that. Whether it is coloring inside the with the analog processing, or whether it is just simply EQ kind of, it's a brightening or a kind of low end bump to the to this snare. Albeit whatever it's doing, it would be brilliant if it was analog coloring. I will have to look in the manual to figure that out, see what that is all about. But regardless of that, the coloring sounds brilliant. Whether you go left, which is more of a let's say warm, and then if you go right, let's say it's just getting brighter. Too far, you're going to go really harsh. But you can find a real sweet spot, which I feel like I found on that. And yeah, I'm really enjoying that. And that will be a very, very interesting plugin when I get the 16 channel McDSPs. That will be something that I'll try out over 16 or 10 channels and see how that's working. But definitely a limiter of choice in stereo, limiting the channels going out to the mastering suite. Now, as I previously said, the McDSP is very compressor heavy. There's a lot of compressors. I think we've gone through maybe 7 now, something like that. We now have one EQ. Now, it's worth noting with the EQ isn't analog. It still runs through analog circuitry, but the actual processing is digital processing for the analog for the EQ. The reason I'm told this is basically if this amount of processing was done in analog inside that unit, it would basically, you could probably cook a steak on it. It would get really hot, and it's just not possible. But I've had to play with this previously, and it's a very, very good EQ. You've still got the analog processing, so you've still got analog circuitry that it's still running through, so it's still getting that analog sound, but you've got digital EQ. So let's have a play with this. Also, you've got mid, side, and link. For this, we're just going to put it into link and use it in stereo left and right. Yeah, so there we have the Royal Q. Now, if someone said to me that is an analog EQ, it's processing all analog through the McDSP, I would say, yeah, I totally, I believe that. It's not. It's a digital digital EQ with analog processing on the circuits. passing through analog. But you wouldn't think that. It sounds very, very good. I am impressed with that. So let's move on to something else, which is basically going to be the summing mixer. So we've gone through about 6 or 7 compressors, 1 EQ, and now a summing mixer. Like I said at the start of the video, more plugins are coming, which is really good. I love how everything is sounding so far. I would like a few more plugins. Just kind of covering a few more bases. You know, I've got all my compressors covered. Maybe a couple of EQs with saturation. That would be really cool, like a little saturation, things like that. So lastly, we have the Moo X mixer. Now, what you need to do with this, what we're going to do is, just so we stay in keeping with what we're listening to, as it just being this snare, what we're processing, so we get a good reference of each processor, and it keeps the video short. Allows us to show each processor quickly and efficiently. So what we're going to do is we're basically just going to use this Moo X mixer, and we're going to sum it all to the basically sum these to the bottom and the top, and we're just going to sum them both to the master bus, but we're going to do this all analog. So basically what we have is a analog mixer inside a digital session. So we have, what we do is we basically assign these channels to channel 2. So we have channel 1, channel 2. They're both now assigned and summing to what we've created as the master. Now we should have these two signed. So if we click here and we type in snare, let's do snare, what was that, snare top? Maybe I was the wrong way around there. Snare bottom. Yep, wrong way around. So if we do snare bottom, and then this one, channel 2, we have as the snare top. Now what they're basically doing is that snare bottom and top are summing through this summing mixer, which is sending audio out to the McDSP processing on this end, and then summing to this master bus. Very, very clever. So we're getting digital recall of summing 100% in the box. It's amazing. So let's see what it sounds like then. Right, that is special. Now that is very, very good. Now imagine, I mean, we're just working with this over two two channels. We're working with a snare bottom and a snare top. Imagine having all your drums processing through that and utilizing that mixer there, um, in as a summing mixer over your drums. Um, I mean, that is sounding amazing, to be honest. Um, Now each of these channels will take up a processing unit on your McDSP, um, and that's as well as if you're in mono or stereo. So if you're in stereo, you'll take up two per unit. So a 16, I believe, a 16 APB-16 would do this summing mixer. But blimey, that is pretty special. I really, really like that. The way you can get really involved in that. You've got EQ in there, you've got saturation, you've got compression on each channel, and then you have master bus compression and control over that master bus. You don't have an EQ on the master bus. Oh, wait, as well, looking at that, so you can switch banks. So you could put, yeah, so you've got basically a 16 channel mixer there. Nice. Yeah, that's a really cool feature. So you've got 16 channels there. 16 channel summing mixer. So you get an APB-16, you run all mono channels into this mixer. You're basically setting up an analog mixer in the box that is, I mean, just over those two channels, that is sounding fantastic. That is sounding amazing, really. I mean, I'm sold on this. I mean, I know I've got to get 416s because I need them. You can't go back from having one of these, using it, and then going back to something you would consider subpar, because what you are gaining with just this summing alone is massive. And the 6 or 7 compressors that we've got, they are honestly next level. So that is my conclusion on the McDSP APB-8. A question I was asked recently was, is the 8 enough, or do I need a 16? I would say you're going to use the 8 very, very, very quickly. If you're doing a massive session, you will be very selective over what gets processed through the MCDSP. If you've got, what you've got to bear in mind is, if you've got an APB-8, you are going to have basically, and if you're using stereo buses, for instance, you're going to only have 4 plugins able to use, which, let's face it, 4 plugins, in the exceptional quality that they are, you are going to want more. You will want more, and you would literally have to be so selective of where you put those, unless you print directly, process, record, print it, and then take it off, move on to the next sound. But then you've got no control over adjusting things. If you achieve your sound straight away, brilliant, but if you have to edit that sound, not so great. In an ideal world, you would have lots and lots of them, which is why I keep saying I'm going to get 4 of them. The only problem with 4 of them, they APB-16s are, I think they're about £6,000 a piece. 6, 12, 18, 24 grand just for processing. But doesn't that tell you something? That's how good these are. They are expensive, but you've got all the plugins, I believe you still get all the future plugins with this, but you will also gain such a superior sound. That's why I'm getting them. That's why I would recommend them to anybody. There are more plugins in development, I hear, and I'm looking forward to seeing those, reviewing those, and hopefully we'll have 4 of these coming in the next, I don't know, ASAP. I will get onto SX Pro and get them ordered, because these are special. Game changing, yes, because I've got no dialing in. I can use my Avid S4 to control. Actually, do you know what? I will show you the Avid S4 and control. So here's what a lot of people ask me in regards to how much control can you have with an S4 and a McDSP. So if we just select the APB, here we have all the controls. So we have them auto mapped to control. You see here, ratio, then we have the attack, then we have the release, we have here the output, we have here, we have the GU, what do we want, we can select through, and then we have the key listen, and what we can then do, and we've got bypass obviously, but what we can do with this is we can do custom maps, go like this, master module. Now we've got our controls, which we can then map where we want. So the way I like to map is basically from left to right, so it feels when using these controls exactly the same. So first of all, we have threshold, we pop that up there, then we have ratio, pop that there, then we have output, which is here, and then we have attack, which is there, and then we have release, which, you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to put release here, and I'm going to put attack there, and then I'm going to delete this one, and delete that one, and put attack there, and release there. And then what I might do is just put, what ones are we missing, the VU mode, yeah, let's just put that at the bottom down here. Then go done. Now what we've got is quick control. We know that's ratio, threshold, ratio, output, attack, and release. And then we have our VU, which one we want to use. Now the one thing that it hasn't got to map are these buttons. So we can't map the buttons. The only mapping of the buttons we can do is the key list. We can put that there, and that will just turn key listen, basically. Yeah, so the only things we can't map on that are the auto button, the attack byte, and threshold sidechain. But apart from that, we can basically have a lovely control over everything in our door. So this will work with anything. So if we go to, let's say, the chicken head, there we go. Now the chicken head is this one, and again we've got attack. See how the attack's moving, release moving, ratio, and then threshold. And then obviously we can do the custom map. And like I said before, what we like to do is, first of all, it's threshold, then we've got attack, release, and then on the right hand side we've got ratio, which is here, and then we've got output, and then what we'll do is we'll put these two here. Click done. Now what we have, threshold, attack, release, and we have ratio, output, and this one is the listen, and this one key. So the only thing we don't have control over on the S4 is the source. Maybe this is something we can put forward to the guys at McDSP, is say to them, look, using the Avid S4, we need the extra parameter for the source. We can put the source down there and now have control over that source.